Plenty to talk about, so let's get started. Let's start with a massive clash at the top of Serie A, which was Napoli versus Milan. It was really just like either way, it was going to be a huge swing, and something would have budged in the top of the table, because Napoli were 3 points behind Milan, who were second, and they ended up beating Milan, which has them now tied on points. Had Milan won that would have been a 6-point swing. And now Milan's kind of struggling the last few games, and that kind of ties into this Brahim Diaz performance. So I'd be curious to know what you think about what's going on there. But Brahim started in this game. He came off for Olivier Giroud. I think it was in the 63rd minute. And I feel struggled to make an impact on this game. How did you feel about this, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. He's been in a dip of form. I can't think. His last good game was probably against Atletico Madrid, and it's since he had COVID, he really hasn't had it. He struggled to get back into form, and he just wasn't impactful. He had no key passes, no attempted dribbles or dribbles completed, no shots, and those are like all the things that Brahim brings to the table. So when you don't have that, it's kind of like, what are you doing out there? What's your purpose? And Milan just couldn't. I don't know what it is. They just couldn't get anything going in this game. And we talked about last week how they lacked depth in the injuries, and that was the case this week as well. But Napoli almost had just as many injuries, so it's kind of a not a legitimate excuse in this type of match. And you would think in a top of the table clash, like, people would raise their levels, but it wasn't a great game, and so they've really been on a poor run of form, and Brahim's been a part of that.
My theory is I don't think he is 100% since he's returned. I don't from literally a physical standpoint. I don't think he's 100%. He doesn't look like he has the same bounce and kind of spring in his step. I feel like he's still working his way into it. There are many cases around the world where COVID longer term effects are there. Some people experience it more than others. I'm not saying that that's the scientific answer to what's going on here. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I don't feel like he's worked his way into match fitness yet. I feel like he's still struggling physically. I don't think he looks the same. I don't think he is 100% physically at the level he should be yet. In this game, and I think part of the reason I think that the Giroud substitution actually made sense. I don't think there's many games where if you bring on Olivier Giroud for Brahim in the second half, when you already have Zlatan on the field, those two play together up top. I don't know if there's many cases that would make sense where you have two behemoth dinosaurs, in like a 90s type kind of 4-4-2. I don't know how many times that does make sense in modern football, but I actually felt like in this case it kind of made sense, because the way Brahim was being used was he was just floating in and around the box and making runs in the box and just not even getting the ball. There were a couple of moments where he was in good position, but they just couldn't get him the ball. And other times it just felt like he was playing the Luka Jovic role, where he's dragging defenders around to make room for Zlatan to get a header. And I thought Giroud actually was able to throw some bodies around the box a little bit, where Brahim's not really that's not really his game. There are other games where Brahim can have zeros across the board offensively when it comes to shots and key passes and stuff, dribbles. Usually his dribbling numbers are pretty decent, but in this game, it wasn't like that, because in other games where those stats are zeros, he's still an important piece to carry the ball in transition. He's a great outlet. This is kind of the theme with him this season, right? It seems like with each passing game, or at least each phase of the season, he's a little bit closer to goal. He's almost playing as a secondary striker. I remember writing about this a few weeks ago, that he just, and he himself has talked about, look, I'm playing closer to goal now. That's what Pioli wants. I think in games like this, where Milan don't have control of the game, and they don't look like the whole team is kind of out of form here. I think he's going to struggle more in that situation. So I think hopefully a nice rest, Matt, to round out 2021 for him. I hope. I haven't looked. Does Milan have any more games this calendar year? A quick glance.
I think
They
they're
play
off
tomorrow. They play tomorrow against
tomorrow, and
Empoli.
then they're off.
We might just roll out of bed and do a lone tracker next week to talk about some little things that I probably jumped the gun. I don't know. It won't be like a thorough one, but yeah, they play tomorrow. So, but I feel like the winter break will do them some good. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, we got to think about it. Like, this is his first year as a starter, first year playing like a game in on a weekend, and then 3 days later a game on the weekday. And it takes time to get used to that. And this is the first time he's ever had to play that type of schedule and coming back from COVID. So sure, I mean, a dip in form probably is to be expected, but let's see if he can bounce back. If he can't bounce back, or if like this dip sustains and Milan just have a terrible second half of the season, then I think that has to go into the analysis when people talk about Brahim, because I think sometimes when people see a few good performances and then they stop watching or they forget about it, like they kind of gloss over and say, "Oh, bring back Brahim." Well, no, let's look at the whole picture here. And right now, he's not performing at a good level. So I do think he'll turn it around, but he's just got to get used to playing all these games and just recover back his fitness. So, like you said, a rest would be good.